So, Steelfest 2018, and now it's time for an interview with non-metal act. What is that supposed to mean? Let's find out. So, Troll Slayers, are they your enemies or friends in disguise?
I was not ready for that one. Well, you know, I don't even know how to respond to that. You told me you were going to get weird. You got immediately weird. Troll Slayers, you know, the thing is with Mortiis, when I started Mortiis, I never had the intention of calling it Trolls. It was just me being creative based upon growing up with huge image bands like Kiss and Wasp, getting into the extremities of black metal and the corpse paint, and then, you know, getting into Tolkien at the same time. It was just like, you know, I wanted to take stuff, you know, black metal was extreme visually, obviously. And I'm thinking, you know, as soon as I left Emperor, I knew that I wanted to pursue something different. I wanted to go back to being just kind of like a loner, which I was before I was in Emperor anyway. But you know, visually, I just wanted to take it like one step further. So it just became Mortiis. It was never like a troll or some people want to be trolls because I'm from Norway. So it's like the whole mythology thing. Other people want to be like an orc or some shit like that because, you know, obviously I was into Tolkien stuff. Mm-hmm. I never thought that way. My vision was just like, how can I take this like beyond what's existing right now? So your question is rather moot.
Yeah, what I mean is to, like you said, and I was going to get to that in Norway, trolls are even to that extent a big deal that you get souvenirs with all kind of troll themes and whatnot. But many bands are, you know, chasing the idea of being a Viking warrior or being this kind of a mythological creature, which is more tied to this kind of Asatru mythology or whatever. Yeah. But you chose to go the Tolkien way in a sense.
Well, that was part of it, you know. I mean, there were several things that inspired me. Like I said, you know, I grew up with Kiss, Wasp, Alice Cooper, all these like big, I guess, American larger-than-life bands, and I was totally fucking, that was my life in the early 80s. You know, and then discovering Tolkien literature, and obviously then, you know, the whole black metal thing happened in Norway and also Sweden and Finland with bands like Beherit, you know, very early on. It was just a mishmash of everything, you know, just like, we got all these cool fucking elements, let's just take them beyond what's going on right now. And you know, and thankfully I'm a fairly creative person. My background is metal and hard rock since I was like about fucking 4 years old. But eventually I became really sort of widened my scope in terms of the music that I'm interested in and that I like. So I was getting into like a lot of sort of pioneer electronic music, you know, early 70s, Klaus Schulze, Italian Dream, even like Kraftwerk. So I had this interest in keyboards anyway. So, you know, leaving Emperor, I got into that shit and just took everything and just stepped aside, one step aside for whatever was going on, and I just kept, you know, forged my path. And yeah, it's cool that people, you know, if people want to do the whole, also to do, you know, Vikings and all that stuff, and it's very becoming of Scandinavian bands, obviously, because it makes a lot of sense. It just wasn't really anything I was that interested in. A lot of people think that, and I guess to this day they still do. But honestly, I mean, I was just sitting there, just sort of creating my own world. You know, I didn't really give a flying fuck about Vikings or anything, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Do you think there's some role-playing or fantasy blood in Norwegian, you know, tap water or something? Because, I mean, after all, there's quite a few bands that have been named after not only Tolkien, but most of all Tolkien, you know, Gorkrot, Burzum, and all that stuff. Yeah. And you have had these, not you just alone, but I mean, these kind of a fantasy worlds have been intervening with black metal, especially more than any other genres of metal. What do you think is the reason to that? Why it's so common to have these kind of a nerd elements in metal, with black metal especially?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe Ronnie James Dio started everything.
Do you still play?
Role-playing games? Honestly, I only played one ever in my entire life, and I think it was a Swedish-made one, from what I understand, called Cult. I played that back in the first half of the 90s. It was very cool. I think in a way it was it was a bit like the Matrix movies, where reality is not as it seems, which is kind of interesting in a way. And that was kind of the way it was. I think it was based upon the fact that we're already in hell, we just don't realize it. And the more advanced you become in the game, the more you start seeing how things really are. And it's like that idea is kind of a mind fuck in a way, you know. And I love that one. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, I guess, in terms of like the whole orcs and trolls and everything. But I mean, that's the only experience I have playing role-playing games. And I was very much aware of Dungeons and Dragons and all those things. And obviously there was a lot of sort of Tolkien-based role-playing games. But I think I got as far as buying one of the rule books for a Tolkien role-playing game, and I'm thinking I was just...
It's too much.
It was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, throw the dice and fucking all these rules. I'm thinking, fuck it. And I don't know, I just probably threw it out, you know. So, no, not so much.
So people are of course expecting us to talk about music as well, and your career has progressed quite a bit in through these years. I mean, your earlier stuff, which you are playing today, if I'm correct, is very different from the material you're creating nowadays. More of an, should I say, electric, industrial, and all that stuff. How did it get to that direction? Was it just a choice or natural thing to do?
Well, I mean, for the record, I mean, right now I'm actually more in this sort of dungeon synth type mode. I'm back into doing that. I mean, the music I'm performing tonight is actually kind of like a reinterpretation or a rendition of the Andens Opera album from 1994. I actually, when I decided that I was going to go out and do this album, I immediately knew that I don't want to just bring out the exact same stuff from 1994 and just rehash that. I mean, I would bore myself to death, because it's been done, and it's like the people that are into Mortiis have heard that album like a million times. So I'm thinking it would be more interesting to just sort of redo it and turn it into what it would have been if I had done it now. Obviously it wouldn't have sounded that way if I had created that album now. So I extended it by like, I don't know, 20 minutes. It's much longer now, and I added like all these cool melodies that for some reason I didn't do back in '94. When I was re-recording this album, I was hearing all these things in my head. I'm like, well, I can't believe I didn't come up with that stuff back in '94. What the fuck was that death? So my nature is a bit autistic. I have to do some things, otherwise I can't sleep for like a month. So it became a much larger project than I anticipated. But so that's kind of the mode that I'm in right now. I mean, you're right. I mean, I do have the whole sort of industrial crossover metal-ish thing going on, but that's a bit on hiatus at the moment. I'm focusing on this, so I'm kind of hoping to do an album of this type of music as well. So that's pretty much where I am. For a long time, I was doing the whole electronic metal. I don't even know what the fuck to call it. To me, it's just music. I'm just making stuff up, and if I like it, I fucking put it out, and then there's other people's job to fucking put into a category.
As review dudes?
The critics, the enemy. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So, but you have also had different side projects like Vond. We were actually listening to, because my car driver today, my friend, had never heard of Vond before. I had to play some part of the track, not the whole track, because it's not exactly driving music. No. And the guy on the backstage who plays keyboards in Arch Code, he's like big fan, like he should meet me because I know Shalvmood is one of the best albums out there, and we had this discussion. So why not have that as a side project?
I just a few minutes ago, and I believe I met him also at the Cold Industry Festival last year.
Yeah, he actually went there.
Yeah, I met him briefly just half an hour ago, and I recognized him briefly, vaguely, because I was not exactly sober at that. That was just a while.
Even trolls need booze.
Oh yeah, we need more than most people too. But he was kind enough to actually show me out of the backstage area, because I couldn't even find my fucking way out. It's fucking embarrassing. But nice fucking guy, man. But Vond, that was something I was doing in the 90s, and it was, when you're in the middle of doing a thing like Mortiis, it's a very sort of escapist kind of thing. It's very, it's very sort of, we're talking about different dimensions, and it's all floaty and almost like a Hawkwindy conceptual thing. It's really fucking out there. But of course, I'm a human being, and I have all these human emotions. I was a very frustrated young man back in those days. So creating Vond was basically just sort of like a vehicle so I could ventilate a lot of frustration and fucking hate and just my displeasure with humanity and all these things. So that's pretty much what Vaughn was all about. It was a bit more experimental. You know, Self-Mord is probably the least experimental album. It sounds the most like early Mortiis. Dark River came after that, and it got strange. Then The Green-Eyed Demon came, and that was fucking strange. That was like tape loops and me trying to basically sound like a 70s industrial band, which in itself is a really cool thing. But, you know, not a lot of people understood that record, though. But that was not the point anyway. But that's Vaughn, you know, it's very experimental.
So you're saying that you want to go back into this kind of 90s vibe, but you have different setup, different equipment, you have way more experience. How do you think that will reflect upon the music when you were creating it?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, you can hear how that reflected itself upon the music if you check out the show later on tonight. I'm happy with the way that it's sounding. I mean, so far the response has been really good. I mean, I'm very proud of it. It's just sounding bigger and more grand and epic. It's got a lot more rhythmical content to it. And in general, I just think it's been rearranged in a slightly more professional way. And obviously, I kept reminding myself not to lose the spirit of the original, because, you know, there's always something sort of intangible, you know, in music that you don't necessarily know what it is, like the spirit of the music, you know, and you don't necessarily always know how to put your finger on exactly what it is that makes music special. So it's important to sort of keep your eye on the ball and make sure that you're not losing it. I felt that I did not lose it. I mean, that's my personal opinion, of course, but I mean, it's, you know, it's out there for people to judge.
So I think there's lots of following, lots and lots. I don't know the numbers, of course, but I mean, lots of people in metal scene follow you because of your metal past.
A few million.
But do you think it was a kind of a blessing that you had your Emperor past, or do you think it was kind of a burden in the sense of reaching mainstream audience, or does it even matter?
I think at the end of the day, you shouldn't worry so much about that. But of course, in the beginning, it was a blessing because, you know, right after I left Emperor, I mean, they became very successful. Odd timing. They got rid of me and they became huge. No. But I mean, they did, you know, and obviously, I mean, I floated on that wave a little bit. I mean, there's no denying that. I didn't really try, but it happened. Because you have this sort of, hey, yeah, man, he used to be an emperor, and they just became kind of, you know, they just
kind of like the aura.
Yeah, you know, so that obviously that was it was beneficial, but I mean, that said, a few years down the line, when you know, more and more people were just not really bothering because I had my own catalog and my own sort of you know, bunch of fans and everything. But I mean, there's always the odd person that just won't let it fucking go. Or like on posters when they do shows, they'll put like ex-emperor. That happened for years and years. When I started doing live shows, which took a while, but I did eventually start doing live shows, and it was getting a little irritating after a while. But you know, in hindsight, these people are business people. I mean, they're going to do whatever it takes to market it, and if that means tagging on a band that you were in 10 years ago. It's understandable from the whole marketing point of view. From an artistic point of view, it fucking sucks.
So, for example, it would suck if we like, ex-Emperor man talks about electric music and synthesizers and all that stuff. That would suck, right?
You just did it.
Yeah, but it's not that we're gonna use it on the YouTube video title.
At this point in time, I just don't really care. It's like it's not.
It's beyond fucked.
It's not worth the sweat.
Exactly. But before we close this in, because time is running out, what lies ahead in the near future, say year or two?
I have a lot of different music that is sort of an embryonic sort of status back home, and I get this question a few times now whenever I do interviews, and I still haven't made up my mind where to go. But I'm gonna stay on this path for a while. Quite frankly, because I enjoy it. I'm having fun doing it, and I want to get at least one record out with this type of music, you know. So most likely, this is kind of like where I'm going to be sort of hanging out stylistically for a while. After that, we'll just have to see, and then I have a few options. You know, we'll just have to see what makes sense and where my inspiration and motivation is.
Do you still follow metal into any extent?
Not so much. I mean, you know, I've always been on the fringes of metal, regardless of what I've done. So yeah, I see some of the movements and what's going on, but you know, honestly, I don't pay that much attention. I'm this old hard rock guy, you know. Now, like I grew up with, you know, Kiss and Wasp, you know, like I said, and Iron Maiden and Saxon, AC/DC, you know, and fucking Accept, Judas Priest, all those cool bands, you know. And that's sort of like where my heart is. That's nostalgia for me, you know. And I don't know, it's unfair to say, perhaps, but I just don't think anybody's going to create that. Those songs are not going to be written again. You know, I hope they will. That'd be great if somebody came along and just fucking nailed it. But who's going to beat Run to the Hills or something like that? I mean, I don't know.
Will you have a successor at some point?
A successor?
Yes.
Somebody that's going to just take over after me?
Like Mortiis quits, but these guys will, or this person will take over.
Like the Phantom? You know, like he's like 400 years old. You know, the comic book guy. You got that in Finland?
Yeah, I used to read that when I was a kid.
Oh, me too, man. In Norway, he was blue. I found out in the States he was fucking purple. I'm thinking,
that's crazy. That was blue in Finland,
right? Fucking purple. What the fuck, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually.
So is there a band you could, you know, pass the ring with the skull?
I always laughed at the idea of just simply passing down the mask, because not truly going to see the difference. I mean, you will, because the facial features and the hair and the tattoos are a little bit identical, I suppose. But, you know, beyond that, I mean, you could give the mask to anyone and, you know, just fuck around with the photos, and people are going to think, like, this guy's getting really fucking old, you know?
Yeah, like Kiss is doing that.
They fucking did it, didn't they? I had the idea for 25 years. I had that idea almost immediately. That was one of the humoristic things I started thinking about myself when I started doing the mask. I'm thinking, this could go on forever. I could just pass this down to someone else. And then Kiss fucking does it 20 years later. They stole that from me. I'll sue Gene.
To conclude the interview, even though we could go for hours, but Mortiis, what's best in life?
Oh, God.
Okay, that's a good answer. God is always a answer to many religious people and all that stuff. No, I'm just fucking with you again.
Satan.
Satan is also a good answer. That's good answer to many people's religious, spiritual calls and whatnot. And because we enjoy laughing, this was not a serious interview. Just out, you know, give the information out for you who are so serious. So if you can take humor, just go and die. Thank you for watching, and see you soon with more stuff coming your way. Bye.